I don't have the money for it. I don't have a plan. I don't have a job. Like, really, I'm just going to go there and teach naked yoga. I'm not even sure if that's allowed, welcomed there. I had a conversation with my mom and she could see I wasn't doing well. And then she said, like, what if money wasn't the issue? What would you do? And I was like, well, I would just go. And so I remember that being a huge moment of like, okay, fuck it. I'm just going to book that ticket. That's when I really officially got in touch with like real official tantric teachings. And I just fell in love. Like, I was like, wow, this again blows my mind in what it means to relate, what it means to love, what it means to really have a partnership where you co-create and where you're both like really powerful individuals, but in their own essence, you know, me as a woman, he as a man, and starting to understand that we're not having to be the same and that we actually can honor our differences and can use that to our benefit to really form a powerful team.
Hi, and welcome to this new episode of the Lightleaders. Today I'm with Dieke Ter Weel, and we will talk about changing your life to follow your passion, about being a Tantra teacher, and in a monogamous long-term relationship. We'll talk about the importance of Tantra in the newest. You can follow the chapters at the bottom of the description. Dieke, you're a former business consultant, now Tantra teacher and motivational speaker. You transformed your life by ditching your corporate career and instead started to teach naked yoga, moved to Bali, met your soulmate, and established your business teaching unapologetic femininity, holistic sexuality, and soulmate relationships. I've also been to some of the retreats where you were teaching or assisting. You work a lot with Sarita, who's been twice on the Lightleaders podcast, Mananda Sarita. So I know also your partner. I'm very excited to have you today. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. What a beautiful intro.
Thank you. And you have a podcast too, by the way. There'll be all the links in the description. My first question to you, Dieke, is what are you grateful for today?
What I'm grateful for is my body. I started off this morning just moving my body, feeling all the things that needed to be felt, and afterwards sitting in meditation. And I had this moment of like, it's really nice to be alive. I love my body. I'm okay. I'm safe. And I was like, yeah. So that's what I'm grateful for.
Amazing. Thank you so much. So I'd love to jump into it. You used to be a business consultant, right? And you totally changed your life. So can you tell a little bit about your backstory, getting into naked yoga and becoming a Tantra teacher?
Yes, absolutely. I love this story and I love reflecting on my own life and my own path. So yeah, I have a background in innovation management. So I often say business consultant because I was consulting, but specifically with the focus on innovation, which is all about transformation, change, creativity, and kind of bringing that fresh new energy into things that are stuck, and specifically big corporates that are often getting really clogged in the way that they move. They're becoming so slow, and so often they face a lot of competition from startups. And so we would work a lot with these big companies to support them in setting up innovation hubs or just getting people more into this risk-taking, creative, dynamic mindset again. And so I absolutely loved studying that, and I've always been super passionate about it. However, there was one thing that was never making sense, and I did internships at big corporates. I did internships at startups. I did all kinds of different things, trying it out, set up my own consultancy business. But somehow it wasn't clicking, like the rhythm, the structure of it, like something was off. And so when I officially graduated and got my master's, I was like, I need to go travel first before go and be a successful strategy consultant and go work 70 hours a week, because that was what people were doing. And so I left with a backpack, no plan. And I was like, let's see, I might be back in 1 month. It might take longer. I have no plan. But I was like, well, actually, this is going to add to my resume, because I thought I was doing some yoga at the time, had been practicing it for like a year and a half. And I was like, well, let me go and do a teacher training, and maybe while I travel, I can teach some yoga and have some new skills, and can add that to my resume of, look at me being a wholesome employee, having not only business skills, but also, a different side to it. So kind of with that motivation, initially, I started doing this. And so I ended up traveling. Bali was my first destination. And I ended up going to Vietnam, Thailand, Australia. In Australia, I really started teaching some yoga and I had a great time. It was a very different thing to do, actually be able to guide a group of people into relaxation. Normally, I was used to guiding a group of people into like excitement and like inspiration and let's do this, so, and with a very different kind of people too. So it challenged me a lot in different skills of speaking, of calming myself down, of using my voice, of working with the body, which was super fascinating to me. And people at that time started saying and questioning, like, wait, are you a yoga teacher now? Like, what is going on? What are you doing with your
Mm.
life? And even though I was like, I'm not forever a yoga teacher, I know that in my bones, but I'm having a great time traveling. So let's see. I'm not attached to this. And I was still really focused on I'm going to come back and like do the job that I studied for 6 years. And so my travels continued. Meanwhile, I got in touch with different kinds of teachings and workshops. So that was around body love and shame. And so this is where I got inspired to start practicing yoga naked, sometimes by myself, where there was privacy for that. And I started noticing that it had a really amazing effect on just loving myself and my body more and letting go of these
Mm.
things that I always made in my mind very big, but actually were like, I was moving through it in the yoga. It just dissipated. And so I was fascinated by that. And meanwhile, I ended up coming back to Bali, doing another yoga teacher training, which was really focused around the more yin side, the more feminine side. So in yoga, you have the really strict like asanas, or more yang. And so I was trained in Bikram, hot yoga, which is
Mm.
just like kind of like military style, but then yoga still, but it was pretty intense. And so I got in touch with the other side. I remember in this training, this woman, I had no clue who she was. I just found the training, signed up. And she kept on saying, how much can you feel? Like just go inside and how much can you feel? What's alive in your body? And
Mm.
I remember it being so frustrating. I almost left after a few days. I was like, no, she just needs to shut up. I'm just in my pose, hanging out, doing nothing. I know that's the yin style. Like, don't go asking me to feel stuff. That's not the part of it. However, I stayed and definitely after a few weeks started noticing that I became more sensitive to things, but I wasn't fully aware what that meant yet. But I ended up getting invited more to different things. So my first ecstatic dance, first contact dance, first like
Mm.
conscious play party, Tantra workshops around like your womb and menstruation cycles and things. And I was like, after a few weeks, my whole system was just blown. I was like, I have no clue anymore what I believe, what I think is right, or who I believe I am, because with all of this new information, I feel it just opened up a whole new world of ways of looking at myself, experiencing me, my body, me as a woman. And so, yeah, it kind of got me to a place where I'm like, I'm not sure that the path I've been walking all this time and what I've been trying to achieve is really what is going to make me happy. And
Mm.
so I started reflecting and I'm like, honestly, I think I can see where this is going. I go and get that corporate career. I'll be there working my ass off for 70 hours a week, 5 years. At somewhere down the line, most likely end up in some sort of burnout. And then having to rearrange my life and probably become an entrepreneur because my
Mm.
mom was an entrepreneur. So I knew I wanted to have my own business at some point. But I thought I needed to do all these other things first.
Amazing.
But then I was like, and I saw so many people get into burnouts too. And I was like, what if I actually just don't get on that path to begin with?
Mm.
And so after eventually a year of traveling, I came home. And then it ended up being this confusing time where I was like kind of struggling with myself, with the expectations of others, with all of what I've been taught. And was I like, am I really gonna just now find a job and do that thing? But I just couldn't. Something inside of me was like, please don't, please
Mm.
don't. But then I was like, what am I going to do then? Like, I have no real plan except for I can teach yoga. And then somehow the inspiration came around the naked yoga. And I was like, what if I could share this work specifically with women and host these spaces where women can let go of shame and really start accepting their bodies? Because that brought me so much. So I was like, that sounds like an absolutely crazy idea. I might be going absolutely insane right now, or it might be one of the best decisions of my life. So I ended up actually choosing to set those workshops up in the Netherlands. And it started off really small. It was mainly, I think, me trying to just get comfortable with this choice myself. So I had all these ideas of people are going to think I'm crazy. What is my dad going to say? Like, no one is going to accept me in their studio to teach this. And yes, there were definitely rejections, and there were definitely, my dad was confused. But in the end, I ended up doing one of those first workshops, and it was actually just like beautiful and not as wild or crazy or insane as I thought it would be. People were very accepting of it, very excited about it. So it was like, okay, something is here. And so yeah, I kept unrolling that, and I felt really strongly when I started doing that I wanted to go back to Bali. I was like, something in me is to just go back. And there was like another really big phase where like for a few months I was like, I cannot do that. I don't have the money for it. I don't have a plan. I don't have a job. Like, really, I'm just going to go there and teach naked yoga. I'm not even sure if that's allowed, welcomed there. But after a few months of just kind of like spiraling down into a space where it's just like mind, confusion, like excuses. And at some point I was like, I think I had a conversation with my mom, and she could see I wasn't doing well. And then she said, like, what if money wasn't the issue? What would you do? And I was like, well, I would just go. And so I remember that being a huge moment of like, okay, fuck it. I'm just going to book that ticket. And again, I don't have to now straight away come up with a 5-year plan. Like, I can just go and see, even if it's just for a month. It's like, let's just at least follow and listen to this voice that's calling me to Bali. So yeah, I ended up picking up my suitcase, one-way ticket, flew to Bali, and from there everything started unrolling. Of course, with ups and downs and a massive challenging journey of setting up your business and trying to figure out what my work is all about. But it started almost like unrolling. The more I started having this own journey with myself, it was the naked yoga, but then I got in touch with my menstruation cycle, emotion, sexuality. The more women just started coming to me, asking me to teach them, to coach them, to explain what I'm learning. And so I just kept following that. And after, I think, a year and a half or so, I ended up, meeting this amazing man, which was very different than all my other partnerships and relationships beforehand. Something, I'd only been dreaming of, even though in the beginning it was confusing. But he invited me really onto a training called the soulmate training, which I know also you're aware of, and Sarita's work. So he
Oh,
was
we've
apprenticing.
done it, yeah, with Steffi.
Hmm?
Yeah, we've done it when you
Yeah.
facilitated also.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I started doing that training with my partner. He invited me there. And so that's when I really officially got in touch with like real official tantric teachings. And I just fell in love. Like, I was like, wow, this again blows my mind in what it means to relate, what it means to love, what it means to really have a partnership where you co-create and where you're
Mm.
both like really powerful individuals, but in their own essence, me as a woman, he as a man, and starting to understand that it's not the different, like that we're not having to be the same, and that we actually can honor our differences and can use that to our benefit to really form a
Mm.
powerful team. And so that inspired me. I ended up, training and apprenticing with Sarita. She asked us to apprentice to teach this work. So basically for the past like 4 years, I've been, deep diving into that and officially graduating the teacher training, and really taking my work into teaching Tantra for women and for couples. And so that's a little bit of a summary of how we got here.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Thank you so much, Dieke. Beautiful story. And I've been in the process of coaching a lot of light workers. Actually, I did coaching sessions with maybe around 60 light workers in the past 4 months, which has been really insightful. And a lot of them questioning how they can follow their purpose, their mission, their passion, and at the same time make money, live from it, feeling also maybe recognized in it. So I think
Mm.
we can take the conversation in many different ways based on what you shared, but I feel this would be a beautiful one. Especially, you mentioned working with your partner, so we'll touch on that. But before that, I really like that you touched on the money topic. Also, you shared the beautiful question from your mom: what would you do if money
Yeah.
wasn't an issue? It's often an interesting one because light workers, light leaders, leaders of the new earth, we want to follow our heart, but we also live in this world where you need to have a business or you need to make money and pay the bills and all this. So how's it been for you to follow your heart and at the same time to do it in a way that is sustainable, especially financially?
I love this question. Yeah, because I think at the same time, I had a huge like journey around money because I was expecting to go like have a corporate job and just have that monthly check coming in, you know. I never experienced anything else. And when I was studying, I always had a good little side jobs and things. And so my parents in general, not that they're the richest people, but there was always money. So money was never something really talked about or an issue. And so here I decided to, yeah, completely divert from what I had planned and not with a lot of savings in my bank account because I just have been traveling for a year and suddenly teaching yoga, which is a very different income too. So it was pretty like intense the first like let's say year or so, where there was a lot of ups and downs and moments where I'm like, I'm not sure if I can sustain this. And so it really came down to so much like determination and commitment to somehow making this work. And so specifically that first year, like there were moments where I'm like, if I don't have another client or find something to earn money with, like within a few weeks, I have to come back to Netherlands. And so there were these moments I was learning to relax into that uncomfortableness and at the same time keep trusting myself, keep being innovative, keep trying. And so I did all kinds of random things. I started like having an Airbnb experience here in Ubud and took people to the waterfall or to some other place and taught them yoga. And so it really invited me to be creative, but for sure it wasn't easy. It wasn't an easy journey. And if I look back at it, if I'm really honest with myself, because basically that first year, at some point it started growing and becoming more comfortable, but there were still these dips because it wasn't regular. And it was really struggling to make it like a consistent thing, or at least getting more comfortable with money not coming in a monthly thing, but more in batches and learning how to manage that. But at some point I got this opportunity to organize retreats and trainings. And I was apprenticing with Sarita. And well, we wanted to actually continue our soulmate journey because it's a 7-level training. And in Bali at that time, only level 1s were happening and there was not enough momentum to continue. So I was like, well, like if I want to continue with my partner to the next level, what about I start organizing this? I know I have a natural skill for that. I've done that, hosted and managed events. It's not that difficult for me. And I can learn at the same time. And so this for me was a big shift because here I started having a second income stream, one that was like not per se linked to like just me as a person, because I feel before that it was very difficult to not see the lack of money coming in as that there was nothing that I was doing something right or wrong. Like it was really, I connected it too much together. And it was very hard for me to separate that making money and running my business and me doing my passion and my work and my message and my programs are like, you don't have to interlink them too much and get confused of like, oh, if I'm not making enough money, that means I'm not good enough or I'm doing something wrong. But it was very difficult for me to separate that because of the pressure, because I think in the end, money is so linked in our society to safety. And so you have to kind of rewire that in a way to still feel safe in your system when there is maybe not so much financial abundance. But yeah, so when I had this side job, kind of like this other thing, which was still really connected to what I was doing, it gave me so much relaxation. And at the same time, my partner was really, really showing up for me, which was something completely new, very edgy, that he at some point offered, hey, for the next few months, what if I just take care of the finances? Like we're in a training, he's like, let me pay for that training. Basically, you only have to pay for your food. We're staying already here. You can stay with me. And that was such an edgy thing to receive because I had all these stories of like, no, I need to provide. I need to be independent. I cannot have this interlinked. But I ended up eventually softening into that and having like, okay, then for a few months, let me do that. And so those two things took off so much pressure, which opened up so much energy and inspiration to just show up, to share my message, to like really do what I'm passionate about without that pressure of the money. And it actually made me more abundant and things started just really more flowing. So when I look back at that that transition point, I might have wanted to recommend my past self to have some sort of second income stream besides me building my own business, and to have that just be something quite simple, something that, I don't know, you can just do, where like it's not the most difficult task in the world, but it's somehow still connected, and it's not fully draining you, but giving you still space to do your own thing and create and let that unravel. Because yeah, like that first year and a half or so, 2 years of my own business was very, very challenging. So yeah, I'm curious how that's for you, or how you look at it, what you've learned around this subject.
Thank you. That's a really interesting topic because I feel it's both at the same time, in the way that a potential feeling of scarcity or lack of money can also for some people be a motivation to show up and to be consistent, to be reliable. I've been working in a lot of co-creation community projects in the past 2 or 3 years, where I felt sometimes not having that energy of money really came in the way of showing up, being accountable, who's doing what, and created a bit of that messy energy. It's like, oh, you're not paid, so if you don't come, you come late, you prioritize something else, who cares? So what I've noticed is, yeah, a certain aspect of that I need to make money, which is actually a motivation to show up, to prioritize, to be consistent, and at the same time can also get people into more of a lack mindset where we lack confidence and we create even more scarcity from that space. So I don't have the answer, but I think it's a really interesting conversation because some people would be saying go all in, burn the bridges behind you, so you're like plan A, there's no plan B, and go for it. And I also really like that approach of feeling more safe, having your partner or another job, or it could be your family helping you, something that helps you relax. I think it's just finding that balance between feeling relaxed and creating from joy, creating from abundance, and at the same time dedicated.
Well, I totally agree, because it's very interesting, because now I'm actually on the other side of that experience, where I feel like the organization of the retreats and all the work I'm doing with Sarita and Tantra Essence, and having a little bit more of stability of income there and a lot of energy and focus going there, that I started noticing that I show up less and less and less for my own business, which I was really full on like creating before. And so I'm now at the other side, where I'm realizing this, where I'm trying to now make the shift where I can balance these two out. Because I totally started seeing that I started to relax, and I had in the way, the income coming in and being more, feeling more like more sustained and more safe. Yet that also was making me lazy somewhere, also preoccupied with my energy was of course going somewhere else. Still, there was enough space for me to keep on working, but I started offering less and less and less. And before, I was creating and putting myself out there way more because I had to. So I totally agree that this is a very interesting kind of like playing field, where you have to find the balance between these two. And I don't have the ultimate answer there, but I'm realizing now that I'm like, wait a minute, okay, can I bring back all of that like drive that I had in the beginning, so hard that I worked those first few years because I kind of had to? Can I somehow find that back within myself, even though I feel way more financially stable and safe now? It's an interesting one. Yeah.
Do you generate your income mainly from your work with Sarita and Tantra Essence at the moment, more than with your own business?
I would say it's like maybe 2/3, 1/3, almost half half. Yeah.
And how do you
Something like that.
generate your income on the more personal part?
I work a lot with one-on-one clients, actually, or privately with couples, or I have some online courses that I sell. And sometimes I do a group container once in a while, like once a year now. It used to be way more. So those are the ones, yeah, the ways that I generate my income through my business.
And it's an interesting point also. So we talked about money being a motivator or being a scarcity, and so can help or be an obstacle. I feel having several projects also. So again, there's no rule there. I think it's for everyone to tune in. Does that serve me or not? So for example, some people, especially in the light workers world, it's very common to have people who have many different projects. and none of them are really blooming.
Mm.
And one of the reasons that when you have many projects, sometimes when you divide your attention between 3 or 4 projects, you don't just divide your time, you divide your attention, your worries. There's time to switch from one project to another. So sometimes you think, oh, I have that other project that takes me 5 hours a week. But really, when you think about it, the whole time, it's not just when you work on it, it's when you think about it, talk to people about it. It could be much, much more. So in general, I quite like when I more mentor people, let's say on the business side, that they prioritize one revenue generating activity to start, because it's harder already to start one business. If you start 3 businesses at
Yeah.
the same time, it is tricky. It can be a bit different when one is more of a job. And actually, sometimes having different projects also work really well together. So in your case, having more that safety, and they still support potential one-on-one. You could help Sarita on a retreat and then have one-on-one work. I think there's also that concept of like a permaculture of project. You know, in permaculture, you have different species that they help each other grow.
Yeah.
So I think if you have several projects, good to be smart and understanding that they're complementary, either in the safety of the revenue or in the type of tasks. For example, if
Yeah.
there are different types of tasks and you like to do some sometimes, some others sometimes, that can work well. But yeah, I'm interested. Do you like having those 2 projects and working with these two, or do you feel ultimately you want to go more towards your own business only?
Mm. Yeah, it's a beautiful question because I'm in the middle of that topic. I'm noticing really at the moment a call to work more on my own business and
Mm,
really like most of my energy and time wanting to go there. What I loved about having these two projects side to side for this time that I had it was, yeah, that this organization was still really linked to me training, to everything that I was doing. So it was perfectly overlapping. And one other thing that really something I've always focused on, and I think is like one of the most valuable things, what I'm noticing is that I've been building a community, like building a tribe of people that love what I do, that like are here for my inspiration, for my message. And like even if sometimes the like my energy went mainly to one project, I always made sure that I kept building a community, kept like
mm,
putting myself out there, kept sharing my message, because that's actually now what creates a really deep sense of safety. Because I feel if one would drop away or something would happen, and it doesn't really matter, but I feel that like no matter what I put out there, I'll have a tribe of people that want my work.
mm,
And now it's an amount of people that will give me a guaranteed like minimum amount of income for sure. That wouldn't be a problem. And so that is the one thing that I would recommend. I see more and more valuables these days is actually your
mm.
own personal brand, and
Yeah.
you as a person having a reach and a community of people around you that are inspired by what you do no matter
Mm,
what. And so that is the one thing I've always made sure I kept building. And so, yeah, now I feel like really confident and easy to go more back into my business, keep on building there, because I feel there's always people waiting for something new that I create, which is
mm.
amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, amazing. I love that. Actually, do you have or plan to have soon paid membership community?
No, I haven't thought of that specifically as a paid thing, but I'm definitely curious about what's out there in order to do that. Of course, because Instagram in that way isn't super sustainable. And of course, you have like email lists and stuff like that to keep your people around you. But I haven't really found the right thing where I'm like, oh, that really is my thing. So I would be curious to know more about the potentials and options there.
Yeah, and I have some background in more the digital marketing
Mm.
and yeah, creating online tools. There's a lot of buzz, let's say, that community at the moment around a software called School, SKOOL. Have you heard of it? It's been working really well, being promoted by a lot of big marketers. A guy called Alex Hormozy being one of them and invested in it. I really like it because Kajabi, that's been usually used for online courses. I don't really like their community features. So this, anyway, that's an interesting conversation. But I do really like once you've found your niche and have something long term. I think it's really worth to have a paid membership community, because there's a
Mm.
lot of things that are really nice when you have recurring income like
Mm.
this and people that get to stay and deepen. with you. So yeah, it's a business model I really like. But again, I think it's good once you find your
Yeah.
product market fit. Let's say, I think when you're not fully there yet, which is for example where I'm at, is doing a lot more one-on-one and more diverse coaching.
Mm,
But then when you found your thing, building around that is really good.
I like it. Yeah. No, I'll definitely look into that. And yeah, I feel this is just really valuable these days to have that connection. And
Mm.
so I'm really inspired about building a personal brand that can keep on growing with me. I'm like, then yeah, I feel because in the end, my ultimate passion or what I'm really, really excited about in life is just creativity and creating and being able, I don't know, share what I'm learning in life, what is inspiring me, giving my vulnerability and my lessons,
Mm.
and just having a platform where I can share and where I can create, whether that's a project or a workshop or something else, even if it's like stories or like podcasts. I love, in the end, what I'm really passionate about is creativity and being able to create.
Amazing. So you have a podcast too. Can you tell us a little bit more about your podcast?
Yes. It's called Dieke the podcast. Yeah, I started with it a few years ago, but I think only like a year and a half ago, I started really taking it seriously and being like, okay, let's actually show up for this on a weekly basis and also creating it with video and good quality. And I talk about all kinds of subjects, really about my own story, but also around, yeah, sexuality a lot, around Tantra, about relationships. I get on there with my partner and we talk about our own stuff and things and challenges and yeah, things we've learned in our partnership. So it's beautiful. I love sharing stories and yeah, things I've learned, crazy stuff that I did. To me, it's like just making these topics normal, like sexuality or like emotions or like, I don't know, relating in general. I think it's so valuable and important. I
Mm.
never had that resource that I'm like, I'll just put it out there because I know it will help someone and it will make someone feel probably like there's nothing wrong with me or oh, everything clicks or makes sense. Those moments in life were very important to me. So yeah, I feel that's my main inspiration for the podcast. Yeah.
Amazing. I actually had, we're talking about Steffi about an inspiration to do couples talks. I don't know if it'd be too many for a podcast for people, but could be interesting to have
Mm,
couples go around the mic and do podcast in that way.
I like it. Yeah, because I think it's so beautiful also when couples come together in general and share and support each other. That's
Mm.
another thing about like doing these trainings with couples together in groups of couples. Yeah, I think it's just beautiful because these days where like only you go to therapy and it's just the two of you in your own little bubble and it can feel so lonely. And often there's always dynamics within a couple them like often the person you love the most gets to see the worst parts of you too. And that can feel
Mm.
very confusing sometimes. And I think it's so special when couples open up and share and connect to each other to be like, ah, okay, you guys are going through something
Mm.
similar, or this we had too, or something like that. But yeah, that would
Mm.
be very fun.
Yeah, I love this. Thank you. And I think in the US, there isn't that much that separation between me and my mask in the society and then me at my therapist talking about what's really going on in my mind. And
Mm,
it's beautiful to be able in community, in couples, to be really vulnerable and really transparent. I just had my friend Yoel, who's in a beautiful relationship also, and her and Manish, they coach each other. And in the psychoanalyst world, you're not meant to psychoanalyze to
mm,
be to do that with someone you know. But I think it's really beautiful that we do it within the couple and the community.
I believe so too. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, I love them too. They're amazing.
I want to acknowledge you also for your courage, by the way, to speak up and to be unapologetically you. It's beautiful what you shared also about your parents. It sounds like they were pretty accepting of what you were doing, which is not always easy for that
Mm.
generation. So that is great that they have, but I'm sure you had also your challenges, because if it's not the parents, it's going to be the old friends or someone else in the family,
Mm,
or to do what you love, to talk about it openly, and to give permission for people
mm.
to look into these topics for themselves and what they want to do. So yeah, thank you for doing that.
Yeah, it's like it was such an interesting journey, but I feel now like me and my family, my parents, my sisters are closer than ever. My
Mm.
sisters even ended up coming to the naked yoga workshops. My mom even came. It
Amazing.
was so beautiful. And the conversations we're having these days also, my sisters and their partners came to some of our couples trainings and weekends in the Netherlands. Yeah, and just like, even though like my dad, I think, is the furthest removed from all the work that I'm doing, and I think still calls me a yoga teacher or something if he has to explain it. But it's like there is such a deep sense of acceptance and love, and I feel less and less like I need to prove anything
Mm.
to anyone else. I think that's in the beginning what was mainly the fear, was like, no, but I want my dad to be proud. And he was so proud of me when I was studying innovation management, and he always worked
Mm.
in a corporate for so many years. And yeah, is that connection all going to fade away if I start doing something completely else? And he really wasn't connected to spirituality or personal growth in that way. And so there was maybe a little gap for a while, but I think I needed that space to just kind of regain that confidence and that sense of trust and worthiness within myself. And then
Mm.
come back to my dad and seeing also, yeah, how I can see him and accept him where he is in his journey. He doesn't have to understand if he doesn't want to. And I'm
Mm.
super open to talking about it if he does. So it's like, it's beautiful. And I love, like, these days, actually spending time with my family is more and more important. Even though we are so different and on different paths, I love finding a way that we can connect and
Mm.
both enjoy. And so I'll, instead of me having to like, no, but you have to understand what I'm doing and really accept and love my life, I'm like, no, like, it's okay wherever you're at, but let's find an activity or something where I know we're going to enjoy each other and the connection. So like recently I went on a horse riding holiday with my sister, and I go on winter sports with my dad. And so I make a lot of effort in that to build that relationship in a different way, in a new way. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Dieke. I love what you shared about taking space when you need it and
Mm,
now maybe being more confident. I feel a lot of us, when we go through a spiritual awakening, for example, and we follow our passion, at the beginning, it's like we have a little seed, and that seed needs protection because it's
mm,
still pretty fragile. So if we have people around us that are going to be really doubting and questioning, it might crush that seed. But then a few years later, once it's been blossoming into a
yeah.
beautiful tree, then it doesn't need as much protection, and then you can talk about it more online with your parents, with the people. So I think that's been a really good strategy and something I see a lot of people doing, which is good.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's just important to keep bringing it back though, because I
Mm.
think a lot of people like go on their own spiritual journey or like kind of distance themselves. But I think really bringing it back full circle
Mm.
is what's really important, to keep connecting it back to where you came from, through to your family or friends, or like in
Mm.
a way, yeah, the full circle element for me is very important. Yeah.
Yeah, if you can, I think that's the best for sure. I also liked when you talked about making parents proud, for example. That made me think on the money topic. I generally try to tune into, okay, I want to make money. Why? With my business, why? Oh, I want to create beautiful communities. I want to give to the causes and the people I love, and I want to live in beauty, and I want to treat my partner and all these things. But also the voice in the head that's like, finally, my mom and my dad are gonna be proud of me when I make money, so they know it's a real job. So I think it's good to just be aware of those where that comes from.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Very quick question: have you ever put your naked yoga practice on LinkedIn?
No, I have never put that on LinkedIn. Should I though? I'm curious what would happen if I do. I've never put it in that way on LinkedIn. I feel like these days I don't teach these kind of workshops as often anymore. Once in a while, I feel inspired and I'll offer something or something similar related to it around shame and love and body love and stuff like that. But I do see how it was somehow so essential to do something so crazy or so like
Mm.
innovative, to kind of really like break, like really step onto a different path, to not just kind of like try to move around it, but just being like, let's do something completely different. Somehow it really helped me, and I feel it launched me into this like, yeah, there's no bullshit, let's just go and do it, let's just try. If I can teach naked yoga, I can do anything else. So it really helped me in that way to just walk my own path, like really start being free and do my own thing.
Um, You've definitely expanded the comfort zone of jobs.
Yeah, and I always say, like, people are like, and what about sitting in front of a group of people or teaching? Like, doesn't it make you nervous, or how's that? And I'm like, well, I've stood naked in front of people. Like, I've taught naked. That just somehow, like, it makes everything else seem like super easy. If I can do that, then anything else I can do too.
Love this. Thank you, Dieke. Oh,
Mm.
by the way, on the podcast, do you do interviews too? Kiss.
Sometimes, yeah. Often it's either me talking about a subject or it's with my partner. But
Yeah.
some once in a while I have a guest. So I have one episode with Ananda Sarita. I have an episode with another like really well-known entrepreneur in Netherlands. One with my mom. So sometimes I do. Yeah.
Amazing. I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. And what do you love so much about the podcast?
Yeah, like it's just for me having this space to speak and having the space to share. Like it took a little bit of practice, specifically as there's no actual audience sitting there and you just imagine
Mm.
that. But at some point I really got into it and I love this space to just share my stories and also for myself to kind of integrate or kind of like create a memory or yeah, I'm like currently also in the process of writing a book and I feel like a lot of these episodes can actually be chapters of that book. And so it helps me to reflect, to see what I actually learned, to kind of trace back, like, how did this happen? It helps me to have new insights and learn lessons myself also through talking about it. And there's just something I just get turned on by the ability to speak and to share my story. It just makes my soul very happy.
One last topic before we finish. How's it to co-create with your partner? Like you work together. How do you manage that? Because it can be tricky for some people.
Yeah, it's definitely not an easy playing field because of course we have our relationship and then we have all these different kinds of roles. Like at some point we started living together or traveling together or yeah, working together in different constellations, either teaching or he teaching, I'm organizing. So there are all these different kinds of dynamics. So it can be quite overwhelming. I think for us, the main thing we keep coming back to and we keep discussing is like the most important thing for us is our relationship. And so we keep actually being quite discerning with how much we teach. We didn't teach straight from the beginning. Really, like I sometimes see people get together and being like, oh, let's teach something. And I get it because also when we got together, there was so much inspiration and passion and joy and juice, So it's very tempting. But we always focused on really creating a solid foundation ourselves first and to keep kind of building our own pillars, knowing that at some point, yeah, most likely we'll teach, but then we feel more anchored within ourselves and within the relationship itself. And that we really understand also what the relationship is and then what other types of interactions are between us. And it's really beautiful to share together because also, I don't know, we tap into a space where we get to share about our love, about our relationship, about our highs, our lows, and really inspire others. So it's really special to do that. And yeah, it requires a lot of presence and meditation and a lot of like, yeah, just like staying centered. And I think for us, it's like really, we keep asking ourselves the question of us is more important than teaching. So how much do we teach together really? And so we're actually limiting the amount that we're teaching together just because it's like, well, it's beautiful when we get to share, but I wouldn't want our relationship to just turn into work. We've had that at phases where we could see that it's going there and we just end up in a space where it doesn't make us really happy. I think it needs to come from an overflow and abundance. So ultimately how I see it is like we have our own work, our own path, our own income. And then there's going to be moments where we out of overflow have the time, the space, the energy, the love to share together and to teach together and to work together. Yeah, that's kind of how I see it. My main intention. Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you. Yeah, I love how you set your priorities there on the relationship.
Yeah.
So what would be your best advice for someone who wants to follow their passion and their mission but struggles to make enough income or worries around?
For me, like I love this experimental mindset. It actually comes from my innovation management background because we had this theoretical model that we would work with, which was all around this creation cycle and making that as fast as possible. And so we have this concept around the minimal viable product. So just create a shitty prototype, put it out there, test it, get feedback, now optimize it, put it out there again, get feedback. And in general, I feel if you want to innovate your life, the same principle applies. And so often people, I think they're waiting for this perfect moment, or like really sitting there and trying to prepare everything to make sure that they're having the money and having the things and that they're becoming successful. But I feel then you can wait a long time and most likely that moment is never going to happen. So
Mm,
I would just say this: go try, go do something, like
mm,
at least get the energy moving. Make a shitty prototype, like get out of this perfectionistic mindset. I have this rule for myself: 80% is good enough.
mm,
Because otherwise I definitely am a recovering perfectionist in that way. So I have to keep reminding myself, like, just keep on moving, keep on creating. And the
mm,
smaller you make that cycle, the smaller you make the step, I feel the faster the change will actually come. Instead of
thank
waiting
you.
for this massive moment of like, now it's going to happen, like this transition of now I'm moving to Bali. That wasn't happening because I was like, I prepared for months to move to Bali and this is the moment. No, I was just
Mm,
following little steps, nuggets, and eventually it ended up here I am 5.5 years later, still in Bali. But that wasn't the initial plan. Like I
mm,
didn't come up with a 5-year plan and worked on that. So I would say really start creating, start putting yourself out there, start just actually doing the thing and just get the feedback and get the
mm.
practice and the experience. This is how I approach anything in life. Like is it relationships or my work or even my lifestyle. I just make everything into little experiments.
It's like in the startup world, we call it lean startups.
Exactly. There's also a
And that,
book. Yeah.
yeah, I love
Yeah.
that. And it's great for, I feel, especially people who might be what we call stuck in the matrix and not really following their
Mm-hmm.
heart. A lot of my audience are also people who maybe have left the matrix like 5 or 10 years ago on their spiritual awakening for 10 years, but still struggle to really share the gifts with the world and make a good income from that. What would you say to someone who's like more long term on
Mm-hmm.
following their heart, but can't seem to quite make it work with the business?
Yeah, that's a good one. I would say like really see them as two separate things too, because I feel like following your heart and doing your passion and sharing your message is one thing. Running a business is a whole other thing. And I think these days we confuse them. I did that in the beginning for sure too, but that makes it actually more difficult. So I would kind of like take them separately and see like, okay, can you learn to be an entrepreneur, which like you have to learn certain skills, and you can of course develop and share your message, but they don't even have to coincide. Like you could also find a way to share and do follow your passion, put yourself out there without that per se needing to be your money income. There's different ways to make money. And so I think seeing them as separate really helps, and building
Mm,
separate skills for that. And I think I once heard someone say that like a business without making, if a business is not making money, it's not a business, it's just an expensive hobby. And I thought that was like, oh, so like, man, I was like, am I just running an expensive hobby, having an expensive hobby, trying to like put myself out there? But it really put me in my place of like, oh yeah, I'm running a business. It's also about making sales and making money and
mm,
actually selling and marketing. So it drove me to learn more about these skills.
thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Dieke. Amazing. So we're approaching the end. It was a pleasure. And people connect with you and what's next
Mm,
for you?
mm. Yeah, so you can follow me on my Instagram. That's where I'm most active in general, sharing my stories, daily life. So that at Dieke Ter Weel, DiekeTerweel. Or of course, check out my podcast. That's where really I share more in-depth kind of content. And so if you really want to learn around Tantra, around sexuality, around conscious relationships, and around femininity, that's where I share all the juice. So I would say, yeah, check out the podcast. And at the moment, I'm also working on, yeah, really gathering all of the wisdom, all of the tools, all of the practices into one big academy. So that is coming up, I would say, in the next few months, next year, that is really unrolling. So stay tuned, I would say, for that. Yeah.
Amazing. Thank you, Dieke. Definitely check schools for this one. You might like it.
I like it. I will.
Thank you so much and much love to
Mm,
you. Thank you for your time and much love to
mm.
all the listeners. Yay!